It's now my great honor to introduce our keynote speakers for the afternoon for a session entitled Future Proof, Leading Through Culture, Risk, and Resilience. And it brings together two intrepid leaders who have helped shape the culture of environmental sustainability through business. We have Klopp, the founder of The North Face, and David Tice, entrepreneur, investor, and film producer. And to moderate the conversation, we have journalist, author, and television host Jurrian Kamp.
Thank you, Peter. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being part of the future, which is what we all are and need to be. And, of course, the title of this beautiful panel is about how we can meet the future in a sustainable and resilient way. And there are clearly lots of challenges on that path. And that's what we're going to figure out, how to navigate it in the best possible way. And Peter already introduced our speakers a little bit. I can add to that Klopp at the moment is also teaching his wisdom at several universities around the world. And obviously what he teaches is what he knows about entrepreneurship and particularly innovation, both things we very much need on this journey of resilience and sustainability. And for you, David Tice, you have another background in entrepreneurship in the financial world, and then realized that there would not be a financial world. Actually, there would not be a world at all if there was no electricity. And you started digging into that important topic that led to your movie, the documentary movie, the Grid Down, Power Up, which I definitely encourage you to see because you may not realize how vulnerable we are. So, yes, if we are vulnerable, how do we meet challenges? Maybe I start with you, David. How do we, when we discover a major challenge, what do we do?
Well, I produced and directed this award-winning film with Dennis Quaid narrating called Grid Down, Power Up, and set up a film company, Paul Revere Films. And I want to awake the public to the fact that our critical civilian infrastructure requires electricity. And electricity is second only after air, because we will not have water if we don't have electricity.
David, can you hold a little closer to your mic?
Closer?
Yes.
Yes. So that's where we are, and I'm so proud to be on this program here at EarthX. And in fact, the film is going to be shown on EarthX TV just starting in the next week or so.
For you, Amp.
Well, it's a big subject. And the big subject is all about how do you keep sustainability forefront in people's mind, addressing an issue like you, David, talk about. There's a lot of problems out there. There's a lot of opportunities out there. But if it's just a soundbite and people hear about it and it goes away, nothing's accomplished. And ultimately what you're trying to do is build a resilient brand around taking better care of the earth. And that is the whole goal. And it's pretty easily done, at least in my experience. What I found doing the North Face is if you simplified it and if you actually didn't all the time dogmatically proselytize for what you were doing, you would be able to get people to join you as opposed to half of them arguing against you and the other half supporting you and ending up with a big battle.
So, but one of your challenges you just described, and you built a movement, you built a brand, is that you need to get people engaged. And often you present something where you do that for something fun, like, hey, we're building an outdoors company and it's going to make your vacation so much more interesting. That's probably a little easier than when it is about major challenges the world is facing. So how do you change hearts and minds? How does that work, David? How do you get people to understand how important it is, what you want them to know?
Well, that's a work in progress. And I'm trying to wake up mama bears and soccer dads and let them know that if the power grid goes out for an extended period of time, as many as 90% of Americans will die. And this is according to an EMP commission that operated at the behest of Congress for 17 years. So I'm trying to utilize influencers. I've been able to get Dennis Quaid on Tucker Carlson. That received about 5 million views, I think. I'm trying to talk to influencers. I would like to recruit everyone in this room to be a grid warrior. And therefore, we need this movement to become similar to Mothers Against Drunk Drivers movement that ended up resulting in state legislation passed in many, many states and saved, I'm sure, hundreds of thousands of lives because we ended up getting ticked off mama bears and soccer dads. And therefore, I would love to enlist anybody in this room that has access to influencers. Unfortunately, Joe Rogan has not yet covered us yet. He talks about the grid going down all the time, but we are literally trying to change the culture and let people recognize how dependent we are about our Uber Eats, our refrigerator, turning on our tap water. All of that is dependent upon the electric grid. I ended up in Dallas going to a municipal water facility and talked to the manager there, and they said, no, we're 100% dependent upon the grid. And therefore, if the grid goes out, there's no municipal water getting to Highland Park or Preston Hollow or Allen or wherever you are.
So, Hap, you have been building brands. If this were your challenge to make the United States, to begin with, aware of the vulnerability of the grid, what would you do?
My approach was a little bit different than what's there, which is you've presented all the problems. And what I found is people don't need any more problems. They seem to have enough actually on their plate at one time, or they believe they do. And so everything gets thrown into a hopper like it's another problem. I have no control over it. I'll just get back and do what I'm doing. When I started the North Face, I mean, we were trying to change the world. We were trying to change the environment. And what we found was we were selling all this negative. You're screwing up the environment, you're doing things. And people kept pushing back. And they were calling us dirtbaggers and tree huggers and whatever. And it didn't bother us because it was accurate. But we didn't get the message across. And what we finally decided is, could we turn it around? Could we turn it to a more positive, maybe satirical view? And we decided that we would push environmentalism by creating a negative award. And the negative award was based on giving an award each year to the most environmentally destructive individual or organization in the United States and then the world. We gave it to the U.S. Congress one year. We gave it to others. But we called the award the Ice 9 Award. And it was based on taking something from Kurt Vonnegut's book. Vonnegut is the humorist. And in Cat's Cradle, he had this scientist who had an invention that was going to turn all of the water in the world into ice. It was going to destroy it, along the lines of what you're talking about. Well, the scientist wouldn't stop because it was such a great invention, it was going to, just had to be taken to completion. So in his honor, we created the Ice 9 Award to give that out. So the idea was, if anybody knew, it would show we had a little sense of humor, would also see that it was somewhat satirical of what we're doing, but it was making that issue forefront to be able to do it. And the challenge that I see, that what Dave is talking about, is absolutely true, but it's such a large thing that individuals don't realize the power that they have. They don't realize they're that butterfly that flaps its wings and things happen around the world. We knew at the North Face that we were going to create the environmental movement that later has blossomed in a lot of ways. We didn't know how large it was going to be, but we knew that if we could do it just in a succinct way and simplify the message and maybe make it a little more positive, we'd bring people together. So what I think is distill the problem down to something that is manageable, get an engaged group of people that really want to be the warriors you talk about, that are actually believing that they're going to make a positive difference. Sorry for being so verbose.
No, but you were doing very well. And now, of course, David, I'm going to ask you, how can you make that a positive message?
So we talk about the fact that there are solutions available that have been implemented not very far, and they've been tested. And frankly, we believe our utilities, our regulators, and our legislators have let us down because they have not provided the level of protection that is available through current technology and current products today. However, TVA, WAPA, a few utilities have incorporated technology that will protect against these 4 threat vectors that we talk about in the film. And therefore, we can do something. And actually, the whole country can be protected from solar flares, which could knock out our power grid and essentially set us back to the 1800s. That could be implemented for about $4 billion nationwide. And the great thing about this technology, it will actually save a lot of money for industrial corporations because this solar disturbance creates harmonics that ends up damaging other equipment. So there's a lot of positive things that can be done. This is not just a David Downer story. And we actually end our film talking about how America has had their back up against the wall before, and we have overcome racial segregation. We built a national highway system. We converted our industrial economy to an arsenal of democracy in order to bring down the Third Reich and Nazi Germany. And therefore, this can be a very, very positive message, and therefore, it definitely sounds somber, but it is so fixable.
So we're talking about the power grid, and that is a huge structure that we can't even imagine, how that is organized. But it is somehow organized through major power lines throughout the country, throughout the world even. And these are big structures. Now, sometimes if you talk about sustainability and resilience, these big structures are very, very vulnerable, and we should maybe look for a very different approach. What do you think about that, Hap? You have been running a big company. Does that always work top-down?
It seems like every time things get bigger, they get worse. And the only person I saw that ever had a different concept was a guy by the name of Buckminster Fuller. And he had to develop an entirely new math to be able to create structures that the larger they got, the stronger they got. My belief is, not being the mind that Bucky is, my belief is you need to decentralize some of the things that you have. I mean, we have a power grid for sure, but we're going to have to break things down so we have power around the world, and the power structures, as you and I discussed, David, it's going to have to be a variety of things. Solar in one place, wind in another place. You can't just have everything on the grid, and you're going to have resiliency based on local supportability, based on what is handy, available, and usable, in my view. If you do that, then you're going to have something that can bounce back. We are inevitably going to have a problem that breaks the grid. The solution is what you're trying to work on. What do we do when that happens? Don't say it's not going to happen. There's black swan events that are going to happen all the time. COVID is just a harbinger of all these other things. And the power grid going down is inevitable, but the solution is also there. And I think it comes through some decentralization and also fragmenting the power structures that you go. So you're going to see solar in one place, see wind in another, you're going to see gas, you're going to see nuclear, you're going to see that, and you have to be able to develop it and support it.
Can we solve that challenge in a local, decentralized way, David?
So I think we need more microgrids. We need more SMR, small modular reactors. Small modular reactors, and I know there's a lot of people in this room that are very pro-nuclear. I know Trammell is, his whole organization. There's been 7 presidential administrations that have come out in favor of SMRs. SMRs are a perfect way to create microgrids and decentralizations and have more community-based power. So this is a big answer that needs to be implemented, extensively.
Here's an idea. I don't know if it works, but you talk about getting the warriors, you talk about the SMRs and whatever. Why doesn't EarthX run a contest with a huge award for all these entrepreneurs and these students that are out there to solve this problem of SMRs? And that's the challenge. And if you set this great award out there, and it's been before, then you employ all of the younger people who are more interested in the planet, I think, than their parents, my peers, but you could create people who are working on that. Now, you may have an even greater one, but if you have 1,000 points out there of people developing it who now are believers, you're going to have voices for the activity.
How about that? Do we have a solution here?
No, I love the idea. And I was talking to Trammell earlier, and there are some great technologies. I understand some gentlemen from Colorado are going to be here talking about, directed energy, and it's a technology I hadn't even heard of, but it is underground. And I'm advocating for us needing a Manhattan Project scale initiative. And it tackles two different issues. One, protect what we have. We have to protect our current 82,000 substations that are now only protected by chain link fences, that could be knocked out by a drone or by a directed energy weapon. But the second thing we need to do is we need to build a much bigger and stronger power grid. There have been comments out there about by 2040, we will need triple the size of our current grid. We are building so many more. We have these data center demands, artificial intelligence, EVs. Our grid's got to be so much bigger, but we need to utilize the best technology. And so SMRs, hydrogen, this new directed energy technology. We need a big amount of renewables, but they need to be practicable. We cannot go 100% renewables because there's an issue about how we need a certain amount of dispatchable power.
Peter, in the meantime, I don't see any time, so I don't know where I am, but let me know. In the meantime, both of you have big missions. You led a big company. You're trying to make people aware of a big problem. Can you share with us a story where you really felt, okay, when I did that, or when I told it this way, then people understood it? Let me start with you, Hap.
I don't know they ever understood me. My wife never did, I can tell you that. but ultimately, the award we talked about, the one that I talked about, the Ice-9 Award, people finally heard what I was doing, but it wasn't what I was talking about at all. The more I was professing the solutions to things, the more either people thought it was impossible or it was too large. Even as I was listening to you, David, I'm going, where do we get that money? How do we... how is it possible in this fractured world we have where everybody disagrees for the sake of disagreement as opposed to solving a problem? And so, we got a bunch of people together almost around satire, and I felt that happen. And I think the solution is going to be getting people together to recognize it and recognizing we have a bigger problem to solve than the ones that are right on our doorstep.
So I'd say the light bulb goes on when I explain. A lot of people are used to the power going out for a few hours or maybe a day or so, and it is so inconvenient. But the lights always come back on. And I will give a shout out and positivity to the utility industry and all the workers, how they do phenomenal things to keep the lights on. But what would happen if the power goes out not for a few hours, and not just in one area, but nationwide for more than a couple months, and then it becomes almost zombie apocalypse without the zombies, because your refrigerator doesn't work, and even if you have a generator, the diesel truck won't get to your house for your generator, and hordes of marauders will be coming to your house, etc. And again, sorry to stay on the negative side of that story. That's why they sometimes call me David Downer, although I'm really an optimistic guy about life. And we can truly fix this. And the grid's got to be a lot bigger. We love electricity. We love green, but we've got to be smart about it. And we need to be prepared just in case.
In closing, I want to ask you something personal. These are big missions, and you need to get up every day, and you need to sort of motivate yourself. And why am I going to do this? And let me ask you, Hap, you could also say, I've done all this, but you still go to the university, and why?
Very simple. It goes back to what my original goal was. I want to change the world. I really did. I know that sounds ridiculous. It's hubris, but I believe the world was screwed up. And I believe that one individual could make a difference, and if that individual influenced other people, it could improve it. We solved a small part of it, but when I look around, I didn't nearly do what I should have, and I'd like to do more. And so each day, and whether it's being here and being part of it and listening to solutions, that to me is good. And then I can echo it and echo it to other people, or I can encourage. And I teach at schools because, one, young people are much more optimistic than older people. The second thing is they're naive. They don't know what they can't do, so they try things. And so I believe that we can solve the problems. I believe we should solve the problems. I believe we can do it if I contribute and everybody else does.
Thank you.
David. So I wake up every day, just like Trammell, trying to make the world a better place. And I felt like God, gave me this vision about how this is not just a big problem, but it is so fixable. And therefore, we have no real choice. And I recognized in the middle of this that I was a NASA grandfather because my grandkids were 4, 3, 2, 1. Houston, we have a problem. We have a problem. And I want my grandkids to live as long of a life as I have. And therefore, I'm doing it for them. And that's why I think the mama bears and soccer dads are just the right influencer audience.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. And thank you.
Thank you.